If you're learning a language, you might have heard the advice to watch TV shows and content. I even say it myself. However, there's a massive temptation to look up words as you go along. And that seems to be the ongoing thing. Basically, oh yeah, you should definitely look up words. However, in this video, I'm going to tell you why that's not the case and why actually looking up words may hinder your progress when it comes to learning another language. And the first reason is that when we're learning a language, we have to be in a flow. So imagine this, like you're at a restaurant and you're talking with a friend and the waiter comes over and says, oh, do you want a drink? And you're like, oh, you stop the conversation and you think about it, you answer, and then cool, super. Now, at this point, you might have forgotten what you're talking about because you were distracted by someone else. Or maybe someone wants to borrow a chair from next to you and they interrupt you and you get out your flow. And that was in your native language. So even in your native language that you know off by heart, you can still forget what you're talking about because someone distracts you. And when it comes to watching TV shows and movies, the reason why that works is because you feel like a third person in that storyline. You feel like you're there watching what's happening in the same sense as a baby learns language by learning its context around it. It learns, okay, that word means that X, Y, Z. So if you're then watching something on TV or on Netflix or whatever on TV, and then you hear a word that you don't understand, if you then pause it, you take yourself out of the moment, so your emotions are now lower, and then you're taking out your phone, cool, type into Google Translate or reverse or whatever. Okay, that word, cool, right? I know what that means now. Let's get back into it. And what that has now meant, because you've looked up the word on your phone, is that you've stopped the emotion, you've stopped the what's going on. You've looked at your phone, so now you're distracted. Your mindset is in a different place rather than what's going on. You look up the word, cool. Now you go back to it. And if there's many words that you don't know, could be every 10 seconds you pause it again and look at the word. Well, then you might even have the subtitles on in your target language and you can see a word there that you don't understand. So you type it into Google Translate, you find out what it is. Cool. But the act of doing that, stopping and starting, ask yourself next time you do that, are you bored or is it fun doing that? Most people don't find that fun. In the same sense that if you're watching something with your partner or a friend in the evening, you're watching something on Netflix and someone says, oh, just pause it a sec to get a drink. You're like, oh, okay. You might get out your phone, scroll social media. They get back, cool. And then something happens. You're like, wait a minute, what was the previous 10 seconds on the lead up to that? And you might have to reverse it. And that might be quite common. And if that's in your native language and it's annoying you, imagine how annoyed you're going to be in your target language by pausing it. But then the downside of that, you might be thinking is, well, if I don't know that word, how am I going to learn it? That's surely how I learn language, by looking up words that I don't know within the content I'm watching. But actually, in real life, you can't do that because if you're listening to a conversation or if a baby's listening to their parents, they can't just pause it, look up a word, and continue again. They just continue and they trust that that word will come up multiple times. So if you hear, for example, the word for car or, I don't know, house or something that's quite commonly used, or like therefore, or however, maybe connective words, things like that, you'll hear that often anyway in conversation. And if the type of language that you want to learn is colloquial, spoken language that people use on a daily basis, then many words will keep on appearing as you're watching them. So you're watching online content, you're watching TV shows and movies. If you don't understand a word now, the next time you hear it might be in 10 minutes' time, then in 20 minutes' time, then tomorrow and the day after. And gradually, your brain is identifying that that word is used in that context, and that context, and that context. So if you're trying to learn the word for car, it might see a car on a motorway, or it might see a car parked in a garage or something. And as it hears that word in different contexts, it understands naturally, oh, that word means that. So that's how it matches up the context with the meaning of the word. And that said, if you keep on pausing what you're watching, you're first of all going to create extra friction for yourself so that when you come to learn a language or come back to it, there'll be a little voice in your head that's saying, I would like to learn Spanish by watching this TV show, but I can't really be bothered because it takes a lot of effort to pause it, look up a word, go back again, and it feels like homework. It feels like a drag. It doesn't feel nice to do that. So I'd rather just watch something in English. I don't have to keep on pausing and looking up words. So it will create a friction for you to do that again. And friction in language learning or learning anything is bad because obviously it stops you from doing it. The best way to do it or to learn language is to either make it as fun as possible or as easy as possible. Either of them or both together are perfect, but not everything's going to be easy and not everything's going to be fun, but the closer you can get there, the best chance you have to learn language. That's why we say, oh yeah, if someone lives in a different country, it's easy to learn a language because you're surrounded by it. You've got no option really. If you want some paracetamol or something, you have to ask in Spanish if you're in Spain or something. So you have to do those certain things. So that's a lot easier. So reduce the effort by not looking up words. Trust the process that as you continue to watch whatever you're watching, the TV show or Netflix movie or series or whatever, in your target language, If you're not quite understanding it properly, or if you're early on, have the subtitles on in English so you can just read the English, and then you'll naturally absorb in your head the target language because they'll be speaking it anyway. If you're more advanced and you can see the subtitles in Spanish or your target language and you understand enough anyway, then still resist the urge to look up the words because you'll see the words repeating in different situations, and that's how you learnt your native language because you didn't have another language to bounce off to use basically. Like if you're learning Spanish, you can research a word and understand it in English. Perfect, because that's your second language. Spanish versus English is your first. But babies can't do that. So they learn a language natively by using context, and that's how they do it. And that's how I'm saying that you should do it to learn your target language using TV shows and movies. And yeah, you learn it by repeat exposure over time anyway. So it might seem quite controversial because there's so many apps, there's even platforms out there to help you watch content and highlight words that you don't know to come back to it. But ask yourself how successful that's been for you. Some of you may enjoy it, but for most people, it can be a lot of effort. And when they think of language learning, they think, effort. You might have just got back from work, and we have to consider your lifestyle. If you've got a full-time job and you've got things going on, when you come back from it in your spare time, you're running on less energy than you did have in the morning because your job takes up most of your energy. So that said, if you're running on, say, 5 or 10% energy, the last thing you want to do is put more effort or more resistance and friction into the language learning process. You want to make it as easy as possible. So if you're watching content, you can enjoy the content, you can watch the subtitles and just have it in the background in Spanish or your target language. And don't keep pausing it because it's most important to stay in the flow of the emotion, because the emotion is how we learn languages best. You might have related when you've been in a different country, you might have heard a loud noise or shouting or something, or a context where you remember what a word means or phrase means because you laughed at it or it was scary or something happened. So we find it easy to remember words and phrases when there's an emotional attachment to it. And when we're watching things on TV, there's emotion because that's how drama works. So maybe you're watching a TV series about police or something or crimes and someone's shot and they say something, you'll remember that better. But if you keep pausing it, you'll forget what's going on and you won't be in the flow. You'll get out of the flow, out of the emotional state. And also the act of looking up a word on your phone when you're watching it, you might even see a notification on WhatsApp or something. You might click onto it or go into Instagram. There's always a chance to be distracted as well. Even if you have an offline based translation ability, you can still get distracted by something else. So yeah, ultimately, minimize distractions, minimize the effort and the friction that it takes to learn a language. Trust that you'll learn it over time anyway, and resist the urge to look up words when you're watching content. Try and watch content that you enjoy, subtitles in English if you're very early on, and go from there. But yeah, that's what I wanted to say for this video. Good luck.